I'm going to make a separate video about the letters R and S just because they have a little bit more going on, and then you can reference them separately. We'll start with the letter R. There are two possible pronunciations that you're going to use for the letter R. The first is our flipped R that we already know about, just the single tap of the tongue behind the teeth, almost like a letter D, but just a flip. R. That's the sound you're going to use the vast majority of the time when you see a letter R in a German language. The other sound is one that we use in English. We just haven't put an IPA symbol to it yet. I'm not great at drawing this. It's an upside down capital R there. Upside down and backwards, I suppose. This is the symbol that we use for an R sound that is enveloped in the vowel before it, but not specifically pronounced. Those of you who took English diction, you will remember this, that we were talking about, instead of saying flower with an American R at the end, we would say flower. Do you hear the R sound, in that? It's just not explicitly pronounced. Well, this symbol here is the symbol to indicate those kind of silent R's that are still heard in the sound of the vowel before it. We use these in specific examples in German. So now I'm going to build the list of the cases where you would use that, I'll call it a shadow R. There is this word, dir, mir, dir. Do you hear it? It's dir, not dir, or dear, of course. We'll never use that American R. There's the simple word and ihr, wir, wer. We've got a new mount in this one, für. Oh, sorry, I did a flip. Für, for, and the prefix the prefix fair, the prefix sehr, and the ending er, or actually that would be a schwa, and then this little R. So this is the complete list of places that you would use that shadow R. These are all individual words here. So these 9 words, and then these 3 prefixes, and this one ending. All other times you will use the flipped R. In full disclosure, you will hear singers using a rolled R, and eventually I will recommend, as you become more advanced, that you will use rolled R, but it's really something used for emphasis and for color of the word, and that's something that we tend to recommend young singers wait on until they get to know the German language better. Let's practice our R's with a list of words here. Practice pronunciation and practice recognizing which kind we should pronounce. First, let's quick go through the list and decide which kind we will pronounce. We're just looking for the ones that are in the list of non-pronounced R's. So here's an ER ending. That will be pronounced schwa, and then the shadow R sound. Here's this word, remember that was on the list, so this down here, we will do the shadow R, and here's an ER ending, shadow R. This word was on our list, here's another shadow R. Look, this word here has 2 of them. This one will be the shadow R because it's the prefix ER, and then the second one will be a regular flipped R. And one more down here, we have a shadow R on that prefix. Those are the ones that come from our lists, therefore the rest are pronounced flipped. Let's go through these in practice. Frau, Feuer, Strauß, bringt, dir, Herz, sorry, that was hard for me, Ande, wir, erfreut, versagen. All right, moving on to the letter S. There are 3 groups of possibilities for how the letter S might be pronounced. One is good old S sound, this. Then there's a Z sound, Z. And then there's also the esh sound, or sh. Let's start with the sound S over here. There is a symbol that you're going to see in German, or you may have already seen, that looks like this. It's called an S set. In archaic German, this would have been spelled SZ, but you don't really need to worry about that for now. In any case, anytime you see an S set, you will pronounce S. At the same time, because the S set is very similar, anytime you see two S's, you will pronounce S. And then the third time that you'll pronounce a S is if it's none of the things found on the other two lists, okay? All others besides Z and sh. The case for a Z sound is when you find an S before vowels. So S followed by any vowel you will pronounce as a Z. There are three spellings that lead to the esh sound, or the sh, and those are S in combination with a CH, this will always be sh, and then an ST or an SP specifically at the beginning of a word. So for instance, our beloved composer, Strauss, this is S-T-R-A-U-S. You see the double S? That one's pronounced as a regular S. Strauss. There is a little bit of detail that we need to keep track of with the ST and SP rule. I told you that it's only when it starts a word. However, it can also be pronounced sh if it starts a word that has a prefix on the front of it. For instance, this word, stehen, we might see with the prefix be on it. In this case, it is still bestehen, not bestehen, bestehen, okay? However, there are other cases where you'll see something that looks just like this, but it's not a prefix, it's just the whole word. In this case, this is just an S sound, so we get besten. I know it feels to you like, how will I ever know this stuff because I don't know the German language? I will tell you at first you're going to miss things like that because you're not going to know root versus prefix, but you'll over time get to know it because the German language in poetry can be somewhat repetitive, but you also know that list of prefixes because we've been studying it for other reasons, and as you start to recognize them, you might become a little bit suspicious, like, oh, is this a prefix? And then there's a root word that I need to use the rules of how the S would function at the start of the word instead of in the middle. So let's do some practice. First, we're going to analyze which kind of S, and then we'll go through and simply practice pronouncing them. In this first word, we have two different kinds of S's. One is before a vowel, so we know that's a Z sound, and one is before a consonant, so that's an S sound. Just to note, you see it's an ST, but it's not an ST that starts the word, so it's still just an S sound, not a sh. Here's an ST in the middle of a word, good old S. Here's S before a vowel, Z, correct? Don't mind that line there. Here's S before a consonant again, S. SP at the beginning of the word, you'll remember, is a sh. S before a vowel, Z. S set, always S, so we get a Z and an S sound in the same word. Double S, always S. ST at the beginning of the word, that's our sh. S before a vowel, Z. SCH, sh. S set, oh, sorry about that, that's not the right one, is always an S sound. And then here we have two S's before vowels, both Z's. All right, repeat after me. Zast, zast. Liste, liste. Rose, rose. Ist, ist. Sprochen, Sprochen, Süße, Süße, Wasser, Wasser, Stellen, Stellen, Fliesen, Fliesen, Mensch, Mensch, Weiße, Weiße, seltsam, seltsam.